Welcome to the Quantum Series. This is Manal Zainuddin, and I share here with you conscious learning and being, an aspect of my approach in education. And I always share Plutarch's famous saying, "The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled." Education is much beyond schooling and schoolwork. Education is never separate from us as conscious beings. In the previous episode, we talked about the double-slit experiment. When light passes through two slits, it spreads out from each slit as light waves, overlapping light waves, called interference pattern, or series of bright and dark fringes that either were identical and worked together or opposite and cancelled out each other. The main discovery, though, was that when observed, the atoms behaved like particles. When not observed, they behaved like waves. In part 1, we mentioned 4 interesting points from which we can learn as humans, living day by day and experiencing countless aspects of ourselves and the world around us. In this episode, we know more. Point number 1, duality. This separation into two opposites, right or wrong, strong or weak, good or bad, life or death, bright or dark, bright and dark fringes and what they represent. Two opposites, the constructive, which is the bright, and the destructive, which is the dark. And here we ask ourselves, are we on the bright side? Are we on the dark side? Or are we oscillating between the two? Which is stronger in us, the bright or the dark? Which could trigger the bright in us? Which could trigger the dark in us? Why do we have to be within the range of these two? This is a vital aspect of humanity to study when we are interested in knowing the adversities we face and the calamities that we see in our world. How can we know where we are at a certain moment? We need to observe. It's only when we observe ourselves we can have the opportunity of collapsing the effect of the bright and the dark. Just like by measuring or observing during the double-slit experiment, the particles behaved like atoms and the waves collapsed. By observing, we are aware of the dark and the bright, even unconsciously, and that's when we take notice of the dark, whether it is a thought or a feeling. At a more conscious level, we can be aware that this duality, the bright and the dark, does not exist. We think it does, because we are not conscious of it. Our minds are trapped in the seduction of the day-to-day hustles and the striving for success. When we look with our higher consciousness, this interference pattern collapses. There is no dark and bright. Bright and dark concept is only an illusion. Observation does not only have to be looking at something and noticing it, but also the interaction occurring within that context. What we allow to interfere. Attitudes, perspectives, and actions. Point number 2, the logic or the familiar is that if we send out a ball or an atom through two slits, we expect them to come out as two. And this is the norm. It's a fixed thought. This is how we get programmed to believe. But the experiment showed that this cannot always happen, and does not always happen. With observation, these two do not come out as two, but as a wave. They multiply. And here lies a powerful distinction between what is static and fixed and what is fluid and rippling. Understanding this distinction can change our lives as we learn the law of multiplication, this overflow that spreads out just like a flower, blossoming, expanding, caressing the vast surroundings despite all the limitations. The two slits. This is the flow of life, the law of the flow as I call it in my approach. There is always a flow. And sometimes when we put it under scrutiny, it becomes blocked. It goes back to its rigidity, and this stifles us as we become fixed within our closed space. And although there are those constructive and destructive motions, the bright and the dark, this fluidity is unique by itself because it builds momentum. It is a life force. Point number 3, just like the experiment shows that light can be both a particle and a wave, we learn that by observing, measuring, or better said, interacted with, we humans alter our behaviors when we are being observed and prone to judgment. we become restricted to certain actions, the ones that are, quote, accepted by society, just to be, quote, normal, aligning with the crowd, whether the situations matched our true beliefs and values or not. We become people pleasers, or at least the persons with the least or no problems. We pretend to be who we are not, to do what we are not, and hide behind masks, which later become enslaving. We follow the trends. We clap when everyone claps. We scorn when everyone scorns and mocks. We agree when everyone agrees about something, and disagree when everyone disagrees about something. And we hide our true colors and forget that we were born to be unique, to be different, to express ourselves as we see suitable. We agree only to what is good for us and all those involved, and we object kindly when we feel we cannot be part of something wrong. We do not worry whether we are observed or not because we trust ourselves and our actions. We know that our truth is paramount to ourselves first, because if it does, it will eventually show itself to others. Neil Donald Walsh says, quote, "Quantum physics tells us that nothing that is observed is unaffected by the observer." That statement from science holds an enormous and powerful insight. It means that everyone sees a different truth because everyone is creating what they see, end quote. Those were another few points that we can relate to the double-slit experiment. Stay tuned for next time. If you like the series, we will share more. And please share and like the content if it gives you value so that it reaches more educators, parents, and like-minded people. And let's remember, knowledge is as vast as the world. Awareness is as vast as the cosmos. And this is what we deserve. We deserve no less because we are more